Alright, welcome to my first ever book review. Again, these are pretty unedited, so this is going to be a very freeform type of content, and I'm going to be removing Move Your DNA by Katy Bowman. So I'm going to have some notes that I'm going to talk over, but this is going to be mostly just me sharing my thoughts after reading this book I recently finished, Will Move Your DNA, and so I wanted to relay some of the things that I learned from it. So a little bit of context about myself before I get into this, because I think it's important to understand who I am going into this, because I think that exercise and our relationship with movement and exercise, especially nowadays, especially after reading this book, makes me realize how maybe flawed a lot of people's relationship is with exercise. More context about myself and the reason why I even picked up the book in the first place. So I'm a huge runner, and I might be running 50 to 60 miles a week during the season when it's cross country or track season, and then in the off season, I might start lower, but I still build up to actually some pretty high mileage, sometimes 60, 65 miles a week. So I'm doing a lot of running. So you might be thinking, wow, Henry, you do all this exercise, so why would you even pick up a book about movement and exercise? And I would say because when I'm done with my run, I think, and my hunch, my hypothesis was that I wasn't actually properly moving throughout the day. And I started digging into research articles, and I was starting to find these stats thrown around, like a whole day of sedentary lifestyle can reverse an hour of aerobic exercise. And I think that these are grossly oversimplified, and I don't think that there's any calculation that can actually do this. Ultimately, being sedentary for a whole day probably won't reverse a lot of the cardiovascular benefits of running and some of the other benefits that running gives you, but I do think it's something that more people need to think about. And that's what this book really touched on for me. I wanted to see what my lifestyle was like outside of running, and if I was actually treating my body in a healthy way, because obviously running has a lot of benefits, and I don't just run, I do a lot of strength exercises where my running doesn't really do enough for me. I mean, runners tend to have a lot of hip issues because just running won't really strengthen your hips, and so I was doing a lot of hip exercises to strengthen my hips, but that's what I'm saying. We're going to get into this book really soon, and this book kind of turns all of these concepts on their head a little bit. So let's just get into it. I think you know enough about me. I run competitively. I do a lot of mileage. It's been my main sport for a long time. I do other activities as well. I like to walk. I like to do a lot of upper body. I do mostly body weight exercises. So I do a lot of push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, things of that nature, and things that just keep me generally strong. So with that said, I'm going to cover some of the main bullet points of Move Your DNA. So I want to start with the positives here. Move Your DNA changed my relationship with movement. And the best analogy I could find, and I think this is actually one of the examples that Katy gives in Move Your DNA. Movement and exercise are not the same thing. And even the same activity can be either movement or exercise. So listen up. What you probably think of when you think of a bike ride is, I have done nothing today and I just got home from work and I want to get outside to move. So I'm going to go on a bike ride. I'm going to go out for 30, 40 minutes and I'm going to go home. That's it. It's a bike ride, exercise. That's how most of us associate movement with exercise. Now, unlike exercise, movement is riding your bike to go get groceries from the grocery store because you ran out of oat milk or something. It's a very small distinction, but movement is a part of your lifestyle, whereas exercise is a dedicated slot where you are moving. The way that I wrote it in my review on Bookworm is movement is a byproduct of your lifestyle. Exercise is a byproduct of lack of movement. And again, we'll talk about why that's important later, but I just want to establish some of the pros of this book and the mental shifts that it provided me. The second thing that the book changed my relationship with is the term sedentary. Think of sedentary right now in your head. You probably think someone lying on the couch or sitting down or doing anything where they're on the ground for a long period of time. That was my definition of sedentary and also what I pictured. Katy makes a lot of good arguments in Move Your DNA that sedentary actually goes beyond that. Sedentary isn't quite sitting or lying down. It's not specific to that. It's actually being in any position for long periods of time. Even the one I'm in, I'm on a stool. Even if I was standing for 3-4 hours, that's still kind of a sedentary lifestyle. It's different and it might not be as bad as sitting for 4 hours, but ultimately our bodies are not designed to be in any specific spot for long periods of time. This is why you don't see people say, this is the only way that you should be sitting all day, this is the only way you should be standing all day, because that's not how we're supposed to work. We're supposed to be moving throughout the day. And so this changed my relationship with the term sedentary, because now, and this is very important for people who think they can just buy a standing desk and now all of their problems are over. If you buy a standing desk and you're standing for 8 hours a day, that's also not good. There's probably going to be a lot of issues that come up if you do that as well. I would argue it's probably still better than just sitting for 8 hours a day, but ideally you're switching off between positions. Get on the floor and work from the ground for like 20 minutes. Maybe stand up and just work with the laptop in your hand for 20 minutes. Go sit on your couch for 20 minutes. Go to your desk for 20 minutes. Stand up and use your stand-up desk for 20 minutes. You should be trying all these different positions, and that's how you avoid being sedentary, not just lifting your desk up and then staying up there for 8 hours. At minimum, if you're using a standing desk, I would say like changing every time is probably ideal, but that also kind of sucks for someone like me who didn't want to dish out the money for an expensive automatic move up and down desk. Mine is just a manual one that I have to turn. So again, it's easier for me to honestly just go on the ground and work from the ground. And I just put my laptop down there. I get on my stomach. That's a really comfortable position to be in for me. And then I go back to my desk. Maybe I'll go over to my couch, or I go over to my dining room table. Maybe I'll go sit outside. I've been in this perpetual state of motion, and that's because of my relationship shift with the term sedentary. Kind of on a similar note, the book changed my relationship with comfort. One cool thing about us humans, especially nowadays, is we've continued to evolve to the point where we're pretty much always comfortable. And I think that this is overall a really good thing, and it's a first world problem. But in The School of Life, which is a book series that I really enjoy, they talk about how, we make fun of first world problems, but they're actually kind of cool because it's an inside look into what the rest of the world will be dealing with when they start dealing with first world issues as well. Now, where I was going with this is most of you probably sleep in a nice cushioned bed. You get up and you sit on a dining room table to have your breakfast in the morning. And I'm guessing that there's cushioning there. You get in your car and it's a nice cushioned seat, and you sit at your desk at work, likely cushioned. You drive home in your cushioned seat, you come home, you slap yourself on the couch and watch something. You're in cushion all day. And I think that it's great. It's great that we as humans have come that far, but also that cushion isn't really doing us really, and this is what the book really talks about, that cushion isn't really helping us in the long run. All that cushion does is enable us to become weaker. A common thing that we talk about as runners is, you don't use it, you lose it. And this is the same thing with cushion. If it doesn't seem like you're doing much, but if you're just sitting on a couch, your hamstrings and a lot of the muscles in your legs actually begin to compress, and they start to weaken and they start to atrophy over time, versus if you were constantly moving, or you were changing positions, or you were on the floor more often, or even if you were on some firmer surfaces. If you just remove some cushions in your life, like if you have seats on your dining room table, you just remove the cushions, that's already a little bit better. But I think that we really need to change our relationship with the concept of comfort. I think there's a time and a place for comfort, but when we're in perpetual states of comfort, it actually makes us weaker in the long run, and it opens us up to more health issues in the long run, because we're not actually using our bodies, and our bodies are meant to be used. We have to use our bodies to keep ourselves strong for when we can't use our bodies. And so takeaways for me on the concept of comfort. I actually have already been doing a lot before I even read this book. I got rid of my bed. I think beds are silly. I think they take up a lot of space. So I have this interesting little 2-inch mattress that I lay out. It's kind of a Japanese style sleep arrangement that I really enjoy. It also saves me a lot of space, so I can just put my bed away when I wake up, and then that's it. I have my whole room to myself, and then I can also put two of them together if I need more space on the bed for any guests or anything like that. So that's already one thing I've been doing. I already like to sit on the ground a lot, so I try to avoid my couch. I do think after reading Move Your DNA, I'm going to look into selling some furniture of mine, just to restrict myself a little bit more, because, if you have that tempting, comforting furniture in front of you all day, it's really hard to avoid it, and I find myself stuck on it. And that's something else with the concept of movement and comfort. And this is kind of like running a little bit. So in my eyes, probably the best thing about barefoot running and minimal running isn't necessarily anything special about barefoot or minimal running. It's the fact that you don't have cushioning that's enabling you to make mistakes. So a lot of people run in very cushioned shoes, and it enables them to heel strike because you have a big, thick foam of cushioning on your heel. So you can heel strike, you can land way out in front of your hips and even your knees. You can have terrible form with modern day shoes. And while that seems nice, you wouldn't be having those form issues in the first place if you just tried running barefoot. And so when you start to see older people run, you kind of need the shoes, and then they go, well, if I don't wear the cushioned shoes, then my heels hurt. And it's like, yeah, because you're landing improperly. But over time, you would relearn how to run properly, because you don't need cushioned shoes to run properly. We've been running for thousands of years, and you don't need cushioned shoes to just not feel pain when you run. So that's actually a byproduct of modern day lifestyles, not because humans aren't supposed to run. We're built and designed and evolved to run. Tying that concept back into us, real world, not running environments, I think this carries over into a lot of things we do here as well. And this really ties into the whole thing of orthotics. Orthotics aren't supposed to be something you use for the rest of your life. Orthotics are meant to be kind of like a cast where you need the support, you need it to heal, you keep the cast on, but eventually you take off the cast so your arm can regrow its own strength, and you don't have to keep it on the whole life, because otherwise the cast becomes a crutch and then you become dependent on the cast. And that's how people use orthotics. Orthotics are another feature of comfort where people think, oh, I have to wear orthotics, and that's not true. You can actually, for most people, not everyone, but a lot of people can probably slowly migrate away from using an orthotic, because all the orthotic is doing is taking the place of your arch. So you're not actually developing any arch strength over time. Again, I'm oversimplifying this, and it's not going to be applicable to everybody, but I really want people to think about how comfort quite literally creates the problem of you needing more comfort. It's a vicious cycle, and you can really break out of it in lots of areas in your life right after watching this video. It's not hard to just quickly do a few things to improve your relationship with comfort. I think that we need to treat comfort as a special thing. It doesn't need to be something we have 24/7. I think that comfort should be something that we really use wisely, or else it will start to have negative impacts in our life. The next thing that this book changed my relationship with is exercise. So I love exercise. I experience a runner's high after almost every run. I feel so good, man. Like, I love exercise. But Move Your DNA really helped me see that especially specific repetitive motion exercise like running is always going to be one-dimensional, and you're never going to have quite everything you need from just running. So your two options are double down on exercise, which is, okay, well, this is what I've kind of been doing as a runner. Okay, well, I can't get all of my strength work. I can't stay healthy from just running, so I have to do these specific hip routines, and I have to do this lower leg routine, and I have to do my core strength and my upper body work and all this stuff just around my running, just so I can run, because otherwise I'd get hurt from running, because running doesn't actually take care of those issues. And so now you have to double down on exercise everywhere. So you have to run to just have for general health and general fitness and just general enjoyment. But to do that, I gotta work on everything else in my body. The other option available to you is you just have a naturally healthy lifestyle where you're moving throughout the day, you're sitting and arranging yourself in positions that are naturally building your strength. And so this distinction between, again, exercise and movement really changed my relationship with exercise. I'm still going to run, I'm still going to love it, but now I'm focusing more on movement as well. I'm focusing on what I'm doing when I'm not running, so I don't have to worry as much about running. I can enjoy my running more. I can worry less about exercise, and I can just worry about moving throughout the day, so I don't have to stress about running. I can feel healthier, I can feel stronger, and I can just be a healthier person because I can focus on my lifestyle outside of running, and I can just incorporate more movement into that. Now you might be asking, what does incorporating more movement mean, Henry? Well, it really depends on the person. For me, this means more walks, biking more places. I'm biking to the grocery store instead of taking my car. Again, I'm focusing more on getting on the ground more often, getting off of my desk, not staying in stationary positions throughout the day. I'm really focusing on putting myself in positions that make me feel uncomfortable. I really struggle to cross my legs. I'm not the most mobile person. I do yoga once or twice a week, but it's still not enough. So I really want to improve my mobility. So now I'm working in positions where not only am I working literally, but I'm working in my body. So I'm pretty much just finding really creative ways to be able to move while I do things throughout the day. Reading, I can read on the couch a little bit, then I can stand up and just walk around the house while I read a little bit. So these are the very little things that I think add up big time. And you gotta just have fun with it. That's kind of why I like this concept of like ditching exercise, because all of you are like, well, what movement, Henry? And I go, no, don't think about that. If you wanna just like walk around the house on your tippy toes, that's movement. And you're building your calf strength by doing that. So I think we're gonna talk about this in just a sec, but I think our relationship with exercise is so warped because I think this concept of just move, that's it. We can't really grasp that. At least I couldn't until I read the book. I'm like, what do you mean just move? Like, tell me what to do. I want exercises. I want a list of things to do. I want to know how to build the strength of my quads. I want to know how to build strength in my glutes. I want to know how to build strength in my abs. Like, I need exercises, but no, like you don't necessarily need exercises to do that. So, exercise, relationship, improved. So let's start bringing this back together. I think, and before I cover kind of the downsides of this book and why I overall give this book 4 stars instead of 5, I think our relationship with exercise and movement is completely screwed up in our culture, and I didn't realize it until I read this book. I had a hunch, which is why I got the book in the first place, but it wasn't until I read the book that I went, wow, this is bad. And the way that Katy really writes this, you have to read it yourself to really comprehend it. But I'm going to do my best to relay what made sense to me. Our society has prioritized everything except, it seems like, the individual. And I think that's kind of the outcome of a profit-first society where we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves and our well-being for financials, for a company, for XYZ, whatever you want to claim, whoever you want to claim capitalism benefits. I don't really care. My point is, with everything in life, we want a one-click solution. We just want to be told, okay, how do I lose weight? I just want to be told how to lose weight. Just give me a pill, give me anything. I just want to lose the weight. So I feel like we've done this with exercise and we haven't even realized it. I think the whole concept of exercise in the first place actually is a byproduct of this culture. Think about it. We have actually taken the concept of movement, rather than us walking to the grocery store and going on hikes and going outside to the park and doing picnics and hanging out with our friends and family and just naturally moving. Which, by the way, like if you go back in time, like we used to just naturally incorporate movement into our daily lives. I'm talking, hundreds, thousands of years ago. So in order to survive, we had to move. So movement was just a byproduct of our lifestyle. We've migrated away from that and we can live in the comfort of our homes and make a living within our homes nowadays. A lot of people can, a lot of people work from home, a lot of people don't even see the sun on some of their days. And that now means that we can't get movement through our lifestyle. So we've invented this concept of exercise as a way to force us to move. And I think that, I think that we've really done a bad job of building a good relationship that people have with exercise. But I think the entire relationship with exercise shouldn't need to exist in the first place, in a perfect, ideal world. In an ideal world, you just move throughout the day and you get all the movement you need and there's nothing to worry about. But the closest thing that we've got to a movement pill for the world is exercise. Exercise is capitalism's movement pill. It's the closest thing we have to it. And when you start to look at it this way, it really changes. Like, it's really screwy. You go online and it's like, doctors recommend 3 days a week, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. And it's like, oh my God, it's prescribed like medicine. It's literally prescribed like medicine. Versus you need to move more throughout your life. So make sure to incorporate movement throughout your daily lifestyle and what you're doing throughout the day and your daily activities. Try to pick hobbies that incorporate movement into them. It's not that. It's 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Try to find an aerobic exercise that you can do to get outside and move. So that's what I want to leave people with. Now, on that note, why did I give this book 4 stars? I gave this book 4 stars because Katy talks about this relationship that I just mentioned to you and how we have a very flawed and skewed relationship with exercise. So what does Katy do? Katy bakes like 1 million exercises into her book. And she even kind of admits it's silly. She even says before she mentions exercises, she's like, oh, by the way, I understand the irony of me giving you exercises when I'm telling you we don't need to do exercises. but so many people asked for it and I felt like I had to give it to them. And it's like, dude, just because people want something, if all of society has a flawed perception of exercise, which I agree with, and that's the point you try to make, don't cave into their demands and like reinforce this poor relationship with exercise. Double down on it and tell people, no, I'm not going to assign exercises. Maybe you can do things like, here's how to test your quad strength, because she does include a lot of tests, things of like how to test your leg mobility, how to test this mobility, how to test XYZ. I think the tests make sense, but when she starts assigning exercises, I'm like, okay, so now you're just the very thing that you swore to destroy all in the same book. It's not like you put out this book year one and then 10 years later you put out the exercise program to try to make a little bit of money. No, you put it all in the same book. Why would you do that? The whole point of the book is no exercises, move more, lifestyle. And by the way, personal thoughts, I think they can both live side by side. I think for the purposes of writing a book and getting a point across, it makes sense why Katy just goes, you don't need to exercise, here is just the lifestyle changes. But as someone who loves exercise, I think I can do both and reap the benefits of both. But for Katy to assign exercises in the book, which by the way don't even make sense. So even if I was like, cool, I want to follow these exercises, and it made sense in conjunction with the book and the points that are made in the book, it's poorly described. I actually tried to do a few of them and I'm like, what the hell does this mean? I couldn't follow it. So I don't think it was well done. I think that it's out of place for this book. I think it kind of destroys the whole point of the book. And now for my final summary. I think the book was awesome. It completely changed my relationship with movement. And this is coming from someone who is fairly in love with exercise, especially running. But this book has completely changed my relationship with all of this. And it's given me more appreciation for running and the value that it provides me. It's given me more appreciation for how I can just improve my body without even thinking about it. Whereas, I don't know, it was a good book. It was a great book. And while I think some of the science was a little doo-doo in the book, I still think the whole general concept of the book was fantastic. And I think if everyone read this, we would have a much healthier society, because I think people would have a much healthier relationship with their movement. So that's my takeaway for the book. I just wish that Katy stuck to her guns a little bit and didn't include exercises in the book that were also pretty poorly described anyway. So yeah, that's my review of Move Your DNA from a runner's / hardcore exerciser's perspective. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't really care. I mean, yeah, you can subscribe, but I don't really care if you subscribe. I'm more doing these because it helps me process my books. And by the way, speaking of, I know I said you don't have to subscribe, but I wanted to explain this anyway. I have a Bookworm account. Bookworm is a federated platform. So if you've ever heard of Mastodon, you can actually follow me from Mastodon on Bookworm, and it like all integrates, and it's so cool. So cool. So, yeah, I'll leave my Bookworm account down in the description if you want to follow what I'm reading. I leave quotes, so if you haven't read this book but you want to read some of the quotes from the book, like the most notable quotes, check out my Bookworm account. I pretty much cite and quote from pages, so you can view exactly what I'm referencing in a lot of things. And right now I'm reading a new book, so if you want to see what those books are, you can follow me on Bookworm, or you can subscribe here, and I'm probably going to do video reviews of every book I read, kind of like this one. So, yeah, thank you for watching. And I'll see you next time on Henry's channel. I'm so used to saying Tech Lore, right? Henry's channel.